Hi, Greg.
How's it going, you?
Same old.
Well, this week I tried to call Baldwin's attorney,
Hold on.
and
Slow down. Slow down. You tried to call Alec Baldwin's attorney?
yeah, Alec Baldwin's attorney.
Why did you do that?
Well, um, seems like they really need to understand that there's a madman on the loose out there killing Baldwins. You'd think he'd be interested in something like that.
Oh, how do you know that?
Well, that's part of your story.
Oh, so in real time, somebody killed my brother-in-law, Baldwin, back in Michigan, called me when they killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're aware of this.
Yeah.
Because you knew me in real time.
Yeah, let's see. So that was your relative Sue Baldwin there, and then she was
my sister's first husband, Brian Baldwin. He was in the Navy.
Brian Baldwin.
Yeah, and a guy from Louisiana told me he was going to shoot me in the back of the head after killing my brother-in-law, Brian Baldwin. And he called me on the phone.
Yeah.
And told me about these incidents and
right
in real time. And as he was doing that, I was informing you and the police.
Yeah. Now, see, if
how many police stations did I and Cat get shuffled around to?
Would you say 5?
Yeah, 5 stations. And nobody took a report. As somebody calls me and kills the cat, leaves it in my driveway and smears the blood all over my house. And that's exactly what he told me he was going to do after he murdered Brian Baldwin.
Yeah, so he drove all the way from Michigan, where Brian Baldwin was.
I called my little sister, and she says, "Come on, Hugh, nobody killed him."
Yeah, all right. But this guy drove all the way from Michigan all the way out to the West Coast.
He's a truck driver. He told me he was a truck driver that heard my story on Coast to Coast when I call and talk to John B. Wells and George Norrie.
Yeah, right.
And I stopped doing that because they keep censoring my truth with aliens and UFOs.
And then when he did get to say a little bit, they fired John B. Wells. Now he's doing his own.
John B. Wells talked to me with Sophia Stewart, and I'm a publisher. She's an author. But she knows what she's talking about, but me, the publisher, I don't.
And you can still find John B. Wells on Coast to Coast. He's still doing his own thing. I mean, not on Coast to Coast, sorry, on YouTube, brother.
No, I don't bother. He doesn't reply. And Hubert Wells was SWAT team while playing poker with me at Chrysler. A long time ago. And that's where the Baker family worked with my uncles and Hubert Wells. And I'm the Baker family. So they don't want to talk about any truth that has to do with Kennedy.
No, definitely not.
That includes John B. Wells. They want to just give everybody disinformation about Jimmy Hoffa and JFK.
So I tried to call them, Hugh.
I had this actor calling me and telling me he wanted to shoot me in the back of the head after he murdered Mr. Baldwin in Michigan.
Right.
He told me, and I know he's an actor because every time he talked to me, he used a different voice, but it was the same person. And he changed his name from Brian Hawthorne to Rusty Kellen when he came out here to California to murder me.
Right.
And at that point, I and Kathy went to 5 police stations and none of them made a report out. And you were informed about all of this in live time. So you know it's related to the killing on the set of Rust.
Yeah.
And Alec Baldwin went from Hugh Lou, and I'm Hugh, and my mother brother-in-law Lou, we were with Hawthorne as he disappeared when Alec Baldwin got his first appearance on Hulu. And it's not coincidence, and you know that too, correct?
When you say as, are you trying to say that this happened back in 1975? Because I think
Well,
Hulu's a newer.
they put him on Hulu to mark movies like Thelma and Louise, which marked my mother and my mother-in-law.
Right.
And I was performing. I was a publisher. I owned a worldwide publishing company on Broadway. It's all interrelated with Hollywood.
Yeah, and that makes sense like that, right? I just don't want people to think that you're saying that Hulu started in 1975. I just want to make sure that people didn't think that that's what you were saying.
No, Hulu started with the internet, and then you got Alec Baldwin, and there's a whole history of that. I saved Sue Baldwin's life from a gang of bikers years earlier in the 60s.
Back in the 60s, right?
Yeah, and then my sister married one of her relatives and had kids with them. And she divorced him and married his boss. And the guy that murdered Brian called me on the phone, told me he was going to murder him. I called my sister and told her to tell the police, and she never did.
And then when he did and bragged about it, she still didn't believe it. The police still didn't believe it.
Yeah, and Kathy was witness to that here. The girl that ran Caesar's Tahoe witnessed all of this, and went to the police stations with me to make out reports, and they just shuffled us around to 5 different police stations.
Yeah,
and I was working for John Wayne Morrison. I wear a cowboy hat. You ever see Alec Baldwin wear a cowboy hat?
Don't believe so.
Oh, and then I'm marked by Robert Redford, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, all these cowboy movies, Robert Redford, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and Butch is my brother-in-law, and that's Lou's son. Lou was with Hoffa as he disappeared. The FBI detained me, but they don't want to say any of this real truth about Oakland County child killings and who really killed the Kennedys and Jimmy Hoffa. And I'm ground zero on 9/11, and you know all this. So here we have the propaganda of an attorney who wants the truth and is supposedly defending Baldwin. And you did what?
And I gave them a call, and I got the receptionist.
And explain your calls, and I'll be quiet.
The receptionist, she just at first she wanted to know whether or not, I actually had some legitimate information to provide. Okay, so she didn't want to just patch me through to the attorney if I was nobody. So I told her a little bit of the story that we just talked about, and she caught on. Oh wow, this guy knows something. You could kind of tell. And then so she passed me through to the attorney's voicemail. Strangely enough, he also spoke Spanish, which I didn't expect, but half of his voicemail message was in Spanish. And I just told him a little bit of your story, just like we were talking about there. And that was it. They never called back. I tried again the next day, and I got the same receptionist, and the receptionist just pretended like she said, well, I'm not the attorney. And, that was it. She didn't patch me through a second time. So.
And who else did you call?
No, I didn't call anybody else, but I put the information on a local newspaper's information. I don't know what you call it. It's not a helpline, but tip line. There we go. That's the word. So like a tip thing, for news stories. But I never heard from them. They had my email.
And this is a mainstream news story. And they claim they want to know the truth of what happened to this woman.
Yeah.
And Hall handed Baldwin a gun, right?
Halls, yeah. I think his name was his first name David, I think. David Halls, maybe.
And the Hall family kidnapped and raped me and murdered my twin when I was a kid.
Exactly.
And I'm the Baldwin family, but they won't talk to you when you call in with the tip.
Right, right.
So what does that tell you?
Well, tells me several things. That means they're hiding the truth from their client, for one, when they should have that interest. And if they're hiding something from the client, that implies to me that maybe they're really under the employ of somebody else that's helping hide the truth. So they don't want the truth out. So maybe these attorneys that these actors hire are actually working for government servants of some sort, 3-letter agencies, perhaps the police, maybe, and really don't want to know the truth and are more interested in hiding it than they are.
And then today I showed you the news story on CNN, which is the gay news station that has hidden my truth and raped me and my daughter. They raped me at 4 and they raped my daughter at 7. And they put up a story about Baldwin today about Hutchinson from the husband, but they completely ignore the murder of Brian Baldwin in Michigan and my truth about Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
And all of this is related crime, going all the way back to the Oakland County child killings. And then JFK's murder and Hoffa's murder, and then Oklahoma bombing, and then 9/11. And I'm the central point in all of these historic events.
Yeah, I know.
And you know that.
Yeah.
Now, you've been researching my life for 5 years now.
Yeah, 3.5, 4, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've known me quite a long time now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you've already put me in one of your books.
Right.
And
Yep.
you know I have federal documents that document everything I say to you.
And hospital records.
And then I have witnesses to everything I say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why my wives were murdered. My wives were with me when I was detained by the FBI. My wives were with me and knew the truth when Kennedy was murdered. They murdered my wives, so I didn't have any witnesses. Well, I have witnesses I'm not married to now.
Yeah.
And not just you, but other people who I rent rooms to.
Yeah.
We're here when the FBI hangs up on me. I called the FBI one time in my life about a murdered kid, and they hung up on me 5 times in one day. And the kid was, his body was carried across state lines. They didn't want to take a tip on a murdered kid in my life. And I'm related to President Ford, right?
Yeah, sort of in several ways.
And
Gardner and Putin.
And his real name is King.
Yeah, I think his
and in Oakland County, they threw little Timmy King on my property in Michigan.
I think his dad was
as he became president.
Mm-hmm.
He called himself Gerald Ford, but his real name was King and Gardner. And I'm the King and Gardner families.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is a great big cover-up going all the way back to the 1950s. And even with the Baldwin murder this year, they're still hiding me, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh gosh, you can research from the Baldwins goes back a lot farther than that.
Yeah,
they all do. All your story goes a lot further back than the 50s.
Yeah, I used to date Sue Baldwin in 1960 at Sandra Locke's house, and that's Sandy Hook.
Yeah, makes sense.
With Fox, and Fox News didn't exist, but I owned all the contracts at Fox Entertainment before cable TV existed.
You mentioned Sandy Hook. That's why Alex Jones was sending the pictures of the I don't know, naked kids or something to Sandy Hook victims or something.
I don't
to
know
that
nothing about that. I went to school with the Jones family.
He was muddying the waters of the true story. I see what he's doing. He's just trying to.
Yeah, nothing Alex Jones or QAnon or
Yeah.
Snowden says is true. None of it's
Right.
true.
Right.
I believe they're all CIA operatives.
Oh, I don't have any doubt. I think, Hugh, thinking about Jim Jones, just a thought that I actually put this in the book. I think that Alex Jones and Van Jones are a separation of the psychology of the Jim Jones cultists, because he was a big, the Kool-Aid drinker guy that took everybody down to Guyana, had them all drink Kool-Aid and killed themselves. Well,
yeah. Well, what senator did they kill down there?
Dang it, I knew that the other day. Remind me. I can't.
I live with the family right now.
Ryan, yeah, Ryan.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was
Jim Jones murdered Senator Ryan. Trump never liked Paul Ryan, did he?
No.
And Paul Ryan gave his family, offered me a place to sleep after my third wife was murdered. And then when I got here, they murdered a fourth wife.
Yeah.
And all my wives were dismembered and sodomized and murdered on holiday.
And then when you went back in 2017, Graham followed you around trying to get you not to vote for Jim, or not to
Graham
endorse Jim.
followed me through 3 states, and Graham owns all the media in Detroit. I had stopped at Channel 4 News and tried to make a statement about the Oakland County child killings.
Mm-hmm.
After, as I sat in L. Brooks Patterson's office trying to do that, they tried to arrest me on unrelated things.
Yeah.
Couldn't, because I'm not a criminal. I own a ministry in Tennessee. And 2 kids in my family were murdered as I sat in L. Brooks Patterson's office in Oakland County. And then Graham followed me around through 3 states. And Graham is Channel 4 in Detroit and WJR. And the people who kidnapped me as a kid and covered it up and run WJR and Channel 4.
Right. So they killed Congressman
Ryan.
Ryan.
All the way back to the 50s.
Yeah. They killed Congressman Ryan. And what I was saying is I think that Jim Jones' personality was split by the CIA. They took him because he was always talking about racial integration, all this kind of stuff. And so I think they split his personality between a black Van Jones and a white Alex Jones. That's my theory.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know that all of this
with the same name.
I know that all of this is the CIA covering up my life.
That it is.
And I'm the truth of the JFK murders.
Yeah.
I'm his brother, and I went to kindergarten with the Sirhan family as they murdered my twin.
Well, that's fascinating in and of itself, Hugh, because Sirhan being from Lebanon,
yeah,
that right there, they're already getting the mind ready for 9/11 and terrorism, and they're attributing it to this guy named Sirhan. It had nothing to do with Middle East.
It's one step at a time, and it's always the same method of operation. And it's always the CIA and the FBI doing it. And the FBI is run by the very pedophile who kidnapped and raped me.
Yeah.
Very same family. Mm-hmm. And that very same family runs all the media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So real crystal clear.
A real hornet's nest in Washington, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's interesting that Baldwin's attorney is Mexican, speaks Spanish, huh?
Interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. On my farm in Utica, Michigan, I stopped Noriega's gun and drug trade via Robert Tosh Plumley and Kiki Camarino. It was being run illegally by all the senators who all of a sudden on 9/11 no longer knew me.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe this attorney doesn't want to talk about it because he's part of that drug trade.
And this is back when they murdered Senator Ryan, the family that helped me. after my third wife was dismembered and murdered on a holiday on a Civil War ranch I was set up on so they could murder my wives. Real interesting, our government. And then,
I'm amazed how intricately they plan these things,
well,
detailed.
everybody wants the truth of Kennedy and Hoffa, and I am the truth, but nobody will give me 5 seconds on TV or radio.
I know.
You find that amazing.
Yeah. Oh, they're not interested in even hear it.
So you know automatically that even the Baldwin killing is just propaganda.
Yeah, absolutely.
The media doesn't want truth.
Right.
Okay, let's move on. You really called them and they never got back to you.
Not yet. See if they do, but I'm not going to hold my breath or
And it's
anything.
been like 5 days, a week.
Yeah, something like that.
And now the gay channel CNN is doing stories about Baldwin again, but minus my truth. And these were all gay pedophiles that kidnapped me and murdered my twin in Oakland County.
Mm-hmm.
Now they took over the government.
Mm-hmm.
There was 5 governors who did that to me and my twin, and the kids in Oakland County.
So you want to move on, huh? So you want to talk about?
Let's talk about my queen.
Dead?
Yeah, I
Queen.
posted about the queen from Kanye's friend. Remember Kanye in Trump's White House office?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's amazing how he posts a story that nobody else says is true. They all say it's not true. She's alive with COVID. And he keeps insisting that she's dead through his sources. So,
but here you got the invasion of Ukraine going on, and the Queen's not out there making any sort of statements.
Yeah, I find that real interesting too. Even before they said she has COVID, she said nothing about Russia.
Right.
Yet every day, her and Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are in the media in America. They say absolutely nothing about Russia, but then Britain's Secretary of Defense shows up and speaks about it and says that Britain beat Russia 150 years ago. I would expect the Queen to say that, not her Secretary of State. So I don't know if the Queen's dead or not. But if she is, she's been dead for a while now.
Yeah, or maybe she's just too sick to get out, or I don't know.
I'm her cousin, and I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the guy giving the news, Kanye is his buddy. And it comes out of Trump's White House. And Trump's now at Fox News saying that the election was fraud and that's what's leading to the Russian invasion. And I don't believe any of this. All of this is interrelated propaganda.
Yeah.
What do you
think? Our troops are in Poland. They're not actually in Ukraine right now. So what do you think? What's Biden going to do? Is he gonna send them in and start a nuclear war and get us all nuked, or is he just going to sit there in Poland and have Putin laugh at him, or what do you think is going to happen?
He's not going to do anything good. Number one, Kamala Harris is not my Harris family. Her family were slave traders, and he elected her to pretend they're my family. After murdering my wives, Obama and CVS murdered my wives on the Civil War ranch. And then the country elected Biden, and he gives you a black woman from Indonesia who's a slave trader. And my family was with Lincoln in Ford Theater as his guest as Bush shot him. And then I was working with all the Kennedys in sessions of Congress as they were murdered. And John McCain was running with Sarah Heath Palin as my wife, Terry Heath, was murdered on the Civil War ranch. And then they called that murder a suicide. And she was kidnapped out of her CPS office, protecting kids from the porno industry operating on the Great Lakes between Wisconsin and Michigan. And that's the same governors that kidnapped me and murdered all those kids in Oakland County back in the 50s. and 60s, but they contain that and tell you the Oakland County child killings happened between 75 and 77. So they don't even admit that kids were being murdered in Oakland County when I was kidnapped and my twin was beat to death, chained next to me in Governor Osborne's.
Yeah, even though there's a book about it, right?
Yeah, they just completely pretend like I don't exist. And
I've got the book. I've got a copy of the book.
In all these historical events, I don't exist.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So Hoffa, Kennedy's murder, and yet my family married into the Sirhan family. And Bobby Kennedy and Jackie Kennedy are my cousins.
Exactly.
And I don't exist, and nobody will.
All right, hold on now. Go back to Ukraine for a second. What's Joe Biden? What's he really up to? Why does he care about the Ukraine?
I don't have a clue.
What are they hiding?
I don't have a clue. All I know is he got 1.5 billion in payola from China.
Did that get funneled through Ukraine or?
No, Clinton was getting the Ukraine payola. And the presidents before Clinton, all the Democrats, they've been getting payola. That you remember the uranium they were selling through Ukraine.
Yeah, the Uranium one deal or whatever it is.
Yeah, enriched uranium. That was all illegal. That's all payola. So the Democrats are getting payola from Ukraine and payola from China.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling what they'll do.
I'm fascinated, with that Uranium one deal, how that was going on not long before 2016. I don't remember exactly when. And then in the 2016 presidential election, John Kasich was up, and then the Wagners killed the Rodin family right there next to the nuclear enrichment facility that my family knows really well, the plant there.
Yeah, your family works there.
Worked out there, yeah. And then Kasich drops out of the race, a week later. That's got to be tied to Ukraine and.
Well,
and
it's all tied to it's all tied to 4 Dead in Ohio, and I lived next door to the people that own Lionel Trains, and that's Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Young, and they were singing about the 5 governors that murdered my twin and raped me and tortured me, chained to a toilet in Osborne's basement. And to do that, they had to be part of the gay political movement that's taken over this country. And they came from Ohio, where you live, Greg. And that's all surrounding the uranium that Clinton was buying. It's interesting to me that when my wives were murdered, Madonna from Clinton, her gay family tried to frame me for the murders of my wife, and they couldn't because the police, the people that Madonna's mafia family said, they called the police, had the police SWAT team me in my home, and said I was going to murder a girl there, and I had already murdered one. And the girls they said I murdered, I had the police put them on planes to California. So the police knew when they SWAT teamed my home, they knew that family from Madonna and Clinton were lying, and it couldn't go any further. They removed those people who were my employees from my home. And all of this, the Democrats and it seems the Democrats murder my family all the way back to Lincoln, and then the Republicans cover it up. Republicans covered it up with Barr, and Barr works for Detroit media with Kathy O'Brien, and they pretended they were me as they ran the media in Detroit and told everyone that Hollywood was using them. Hollywood wasn't using them, Hollywood was using me. Mm-hmm. And I'm the Gardner family, and the Gardner family made the first TV series on Earth. All of this is a power play by Trump and Barr and Graham to hide my existence as they stole money from my family. And
that's why Trump hired Attorney General Barr,
and murdered the Kennedys. And then they caused 9/11 after stealing my worldwide federal publishing license in the name. And
And did you know Jack Ruby was dating a stripper by the name, she went by the name Candy Barr, but she spelled it with 2 R's, just
well,
like Attorney General
Candy
Barr.
Barr worked with me in Bonaventure, and Bonaventure was a postal service guy. He got thrown in jail for having sex in public in a fountain.
And his name was Candy Barr. What do you mean?
His girlfriend was Candy Barr.
Okay, so his girlfriend was Candy Barr, like Jack Ruby's girlfriend.
Yeah, and I delivered to the book building where Vargas was airbrushing people like Marilyn Monroe.
Mhm.
And none of this,
That's amazing.
none of this is a lie. Candy
Yeah.
Barr was a waitress at Jimmy the Greek's restaurant.
See, and what was that? Is that a place that Bottom Line played, or?
No, nobody not even knows it existed. A Greek family known as Jimmy the Greek set up 2 cooks, Tessoff and a chef from Greece. They hired me to be a busboy, and then they were teaching me to be a short order cook. And Candy Barr was one of the waitresses there. And she dated Bonaventure, and Bonaventure and her got thrown in jail for having sex in public.
And that would have been about the same time as Ruby dating Candy Barr. That's amazing.
And I was renting a factory from his trademark, Shelby Service Center. Yeah, it's all interrelated. I rented
and she spelled it Barr, and that's why you have Attorney General Barr and Emily Barr running Graham Media.
Correct. And these are the people hiding my truth.
Roseanne Barr, yeah, with 2 R's.
And the murders of the kids in Oakland County. Instead of, they acted like they were against that as they covered up the murders.
Hmm.
And Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien covered up the murders. They weren't about, nobody kidnapped Roseanne Barr.
Right.
That's all a lie. And Trump,
I don't know how this whole thing works, but I was one step away from talking to Roseanne Barr online from somebody that you know about the time I met you. And that was just bizarre because she was really into something.
Because they follow everything I say so they can counter me in the news.
I see,
When there's murders like Baldwin or kids, then they cover up the murders. And if people who witnessed these people trying to murder me like you did, they won't take reports from you and they pretend like I never exist.
Right.
It's because they're hiding the Oakland County child killers, the murders of Kennedy and Oklahoma bombing. McVeigh was.
They're the same people. They're the same people.
Yeah.
They're related to Osborne, and Osborne's running the sex crimes division.
What are the chances of me living next door to Barr and Kathy O'Brien in Oakland County? And her father, Dr. O'Brien, was my friend. I helped sober him up in a Rochester hospital. Before you were born, Greg, Dr. O'Brien was my real life friend.
Yeah.
What are the chances of me being involved in that? The FBI detained me for Hoffa. And
they say they detained O'Brien, yeah.
All the Kennedys are working with me. Oklahoma bombing, McVeigh lived next door to my farm. And Nichols had lived next door to me for almost 30 years. And then when I moved out here to California, Nichols lived next door to me again. Mm-hmm. What are the chances of all of this, Greg?
No,
they murdered my brother-in-law Baldwin, and Rusty Kellen calls me on the phone and tells me he's going to murder me, shoot me in the head. He kills the cat, smears the blood all around my house. Police won't take a report, and then you got HH murdered. Oh, they doubled me again, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And Alec Baldwin's attorney's helping him do it.
Yeah.
With CNN. Right. CNN is the reporters who Anderson kidnapped me, Cooper kidnapped my daughter.
And I venture to say that people like Baldwin are too dumb to even know it.
Yeah, he don't know what they're using him for.
Right.
And if he does, he's part of the crime. It's all criminal activity. They're hiding the truth of all these historic events that I'm at the center of, and they won't even take eyewitness testimony from somebody like you. And you have a college degree and you've already written books. And they won't take eye testimony from you.
Right.
All of the parties, the Republicans, the Democrats, Ron Paul's family was my business manager at Bottom Line, New York, all the way back in 1965. They sold me out to the Russian mafia, de Blasio. And you know there's no lie in that, Craig. Correct?
Yeah.
All of this will be in the book you're writing about me, and you've researched it all. And I have real federal documents.
Yeah.
On 9/11, I had a civil rights law case against who, Greg?
That would have been the Groves family.
At where?
And the Groves family are the same people that created the Pentagon.
And
Leslie
they blew up my civil rights case inside the Pentagon on 9/11.
Yeah, you filed it in Michigan and it made its way down to the Pentagon.
Yeah, because it was against that family.
Yeah.
And then 9/11, they blew up my FBI records, Building 7. The last plane was in a Pennsylvania field where my murdered wife was born.
Yeah.
And Bush said my name. And none of this is a lie. And you know I have documents that prove all of this.
Yeah.
And I want you to put the documents in your book.
Yeah.
I have people attempting to murder me at this time in my life. People like Rusty Kellen.
Yeah.
And
And some guy working for Joe, for the president, for Joe Biden. Joe.
Yeah, Joe. That's correct. And in my life, this is never ending. So even if I die, publish the book and put my documents in it.
Somebody shot at you.
You have hospital records for Victoria that show she was sodomized.
Yeah.
Right in the hospital, just before they murdered her a second time on Halloween Eve. Correct?
Yeah.
Put them in your book. They're the real thing.
Yeah.
Scan the documents. Make sure they go into your book. All the Senate letters. Make sure they go into your book. Anything else you find, put all my federal documents right in your book. I'm the truth of all these events. And all Americans are being lied to by Ventura, Jones, Snowden, the presidents, Clinton, all the way back to Reagan. Reagan was talking right to me just before he was shot. President Ford was shot by Manson's people.
Yeah, Manson's people, and also Moore, I think, was the other one.
Yeah, and Moore was selling drugs next door to me.
Right.
And that's Oscar Mayer Wiener, Oscar Tyler Moore.
Yeah.
Drug dealer back in Michigan. And it's all tied in with the bikers who murdered my wives, and the White House hired them to murder my wives. Two of my wives were murdered twice. I found them dead, revived them, flew them to hospitals, and they murdered them a second time in the hospital. And you know this.
And Oscar Tyler Moore's girlfriend was murdered the same day your wife was murdered and thrown in a dumpster at Graceland.
Right. It's all related. My family was writing Presley's songs that he sang.
And then when Kennedy was when Elvis was murdered 10 years later to the day, they tried to kill you on an airplane, and everybody else on the plane died.
Yeah.
On the very day, 10 years later.
Yeah, and I wrote the FBI, and once again they hung up on me. And on that day, you had a story about one little girl surviving the plane crash.
Yeah. Mhm.
I survived it too. And I had just left IBM with Amphianetta, Washington, and both their brothers were linebackers on the Chicago Bears and the Detroit Lions.
Mhm.
This is no small thing, but I never exist in the media. And then you got Denzel Washington in all his movies. And then you have BLM, my stolen trademark, being used by the Bundys and being used by Black Lives Matter. This is how they hide me.
Yeah, Bureau of Land Management and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah,
And
that's
Bottom Line Music.
that's my stolen trademark, Bottom Line Music.
Mhm.
And Weiner and Associates stole the trademark. So
And the whiners are the Clintons people that
I don't know what's going to happen.
hired down to me.
I don't know what's going to happen with Russia, but I don't care. That has nothing to do with my country.
Unless he gets us in a nuclear war and they start bombing our country, then it matters.
Well, my family. Well, the only reason he's going to do that is because my country's interfering with things that aren't their business.
Exactly.
Why was all the actors in Hollywood from Russia to begin with? Stallone, Ed Asner, Seagal. They're all Russian actors. Dustin Hoffman, they're all from Russia. Why? Americans did that, not Putin.
See, we had to have some pretty strong influence there, and that's why.
And this is after Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura told you that my family were communists, and my family wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
And my
Fagin,
family's on all the American money.
Yeah, Fagin did that and was
But I'm
talking
a
to Clark
communist.
Gable.
But I'm
Yeah, Fagin did that talking to Clark Gable and to Ava Gardner, calling them communists.
And I'm the Gardner family, and Gardner is Baker.
So our CIA killed poisoned the last Ukrainian president, blamed it on Russia. Yeah.
My wife was Joe Jacobs' daughter. He gave Gates his software to make his first computer at my wedding, and Gates is my cousin. But I'm a communist.
Right.
As my family.
So we're interfering with them, not the other way around.
My communist family was Admiral Byrd. My cousin piloted the Enterprise during the Vietnam War. My brother helped run Fort Knox. My other cousin ran Camp Lejeune, but I'm a communist, according to Alex Jones and Jesse Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
And they marked me in all Hollywood movies with Russian actors. The Clintons helped do that as they were selling enriched uranium to Russia.
I meant to mention, Hugh, that the people that killed the Rodins, those were the Wagners that killed the Rodins there in Piketon, where the uranium enrichment facility is in Ohio.
I work for.
You work for Wagners, but also the Wagners.
They tried to kill me when I worked for them.
It's also Putin's private security, the Wagners.
That's when Caldwell Banks attempted to murder me when I worked for Wagner.
Amazing.
And then there's the Jagger family, Mick Jagger, who married Hall, and Hall was one of my kidnappers when I was 4 years old.
And Halls gave the gun to Baldwin.
All right. They cut us off there.
Yeah, I saw a little.
They just cut it off there, so I'll say it again. Jagger married Hall, saying he killed the Kennedys. The Queen knighted him, and Hall is one of the families that kidnapped me when I was 4 with 5 governors, tortured me, and beat my twin to death.
Yeah, he wasn't just singing it. He's part of the people that did.
As Sirhan's family was moved to my school and went to kindergarten with me, 5 governors were doing that to me. And then they framed Oswald and they framed Sirhan. And I don't think it, I know it. And then you have all these movies and books and all the killers becoming millionaires and billionaires at my expense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I have the Mini Cooper. It's the Mini Cooper S, right from London. As you get Epstein and Prince Andrew raping little kids. I went to St. Anne's. I'm related to the kings of Europe. None of this is coincidence, Greg. I'm the biggest cover up on earth, just like you said in your first book.
Yeah, and they covered up St. Anne's by making them pay out the $5 billion or whatever it was, the biggest lawsuit in history in the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like $6 billion. At my church, where I went to church with Disney, I went to church with Bush, Disney, James Taylor, and they marked me. Gordon Lightfoot marked me from the Iroquois Reservation when I escaped the governors that kidnapped me. He wrote Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald as merchant marines created the Hell's Angel, Sonny Barger. My two neighbors, Cameron and Pratt, became the Philadelphia Experiment. And all of this is BS. There's no secret diary. Admiral Byrd had no secret diary.
I realize it's going to be hard for a lot of people to put all that together, but I can say that once it's broke down and enough research is done, it's crystal clear, and it all makes sense to me.
You know, Greg, you know Admiral Byrd's family was at my wife's bedside when she was murdered the second time.
Yeah. She sent you a letter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he left me a letter at her bedside. Put that in your book too. Anything else to add to this video, Greg?
Well, that's a mouthful. If anybody does research this, they'll spend years doing it.
It's interesting they cut me off at Jagger and Hall.
Yeah, because you're saying who killed the Kennedys.
Yeah, the throne of London is supposed to be our ally, but the Queen knighted the guy who sings about killing Kennedy, our president.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some friend that is. To knight the guy that says he killed Kennedy. And Jagger didn't kill Kennedy. His wife's family helped kill Kennedy.
Right. Understand. Right.
An American.
Well, I'll see you later then.
These people are all governors in America.
Mm-hmm.
Take care, Greg. I'm going to end this here.
Okay.